Hello traders, and welcome to another exciting edition of our weekly XAUSD and GBPUSD trade analysis. Okay, so I'm excited to be here with you as we dive into the dynamic world of forex trading. So in today's video, we'll be dissecting the price action for XAUSD and GBPUSD, identifying key and potential levels on the charts and discussing potential strategies for the week ahead.
Alright guys, so welcome to this week's episode of our weekly forecast with Chinex FX. Let's quickly dive in. Last week, price formed a new high right here. Price broke out of this resistance and formed a new high right here, and we were expecting price to move downward, to respect this resistance zone, thereby validating it as a support zone. That is a very valid support zone before moving upward. Or if price decides to break below this resistance zone, we're going to expect price to continue downward. As you can see with me, price just came down, we tested this zone, thereby turning it into a valid support on the daily time frame right here before continuing to the upside. You can see some signs of continuation to the upside. So guys, for the coming week, as you can see, this is a very valid resistance zone, and this is right now a new support for price on the daily time frame. But before we dive in, we are going to take a look at the weekly time frame right here. As you can see, on the weekly time frame for GBPUSD, as you can see that price is currently on an uptrend. If you look closely, we discover that price broke out of this resistance. We could count this as a previous resistance, and price broke out of it right here. So the next resistance we need to be looking out for on the weekly time frame for GBPUSD would be this resistance zone right here. So we'll be expecting price to move upward, to respect this resistance zone right here. That's the next zone we are looking for price to continue its upward movement to right here, guys. So quickly we will move back to the daily time frame so we can look out for the zones that we need to be paying close attention to. So right here on the daily time frame, price has broken out of this resistance zone right here on the daily time frame, formed a new high and then came back just like we expected for last week to validate this zone right here. So right here we will be expecting price to continue upward to respect this recent high, or possibly break out of it, since we still expect continuation to the upside on the weekly time frame, just like we checked. Break out of this, give us a confirmation before its movement to the upside. But if price decides to reverse from this position, depending on the opening of the market next week, and then breaks below this zone right here, remember this is a valid support, we'll be expecting price to continue downward to this support zone right here. So I'm just going to extend this real quick so we don't get really confused. So we'll be expecting price to continue downward to that zone right there. So guys, real quick, we are going to move over to the 4 hours time frame so as to pick out some others. Alright guys, so this is the 4 hours time frame. As you can see, remember on the daily time frame we saw that price was moving downward. Price came down to respect this zone. So as you can see, the downward movement of price is pretty clear right here. Price broke out of this resistance zone, formed a new high, and then started trending downward on the 4 hours time frame until it came down to respect this zone right here. So we are going to mark out a few zones on the 4 hours time frame. We can consider this zone right here a previous high, previous resistance, of which price has broken out from on the 4 hours time frame. So I'm just going to quickly expand this. Since price has broken out of this zone right here on the 4 hours time frame, we expect price to continue downward to retest this zone, just like it did right here on the daily time frame by retesting this zone, thereby turning it into a valid support. We expect price to come down to retest this zone, turn it into a valid support before continuing to the upside to respect or possibly break out of this resistance zone, guys. But on the flip side, on the 4 hours time frame, if price decides to break below this zone, depending on the opening of the markets on Monday, you can expect price to come down to respect this zone again. That will be giving us a double bottom. That's double confirmation of price movement to the upside, or possibly breaking out of that zone, give us a confirmation before continuing to the downside. So guys, quickly we'll also move over to the 1 hour time frame, so we can also see these marked out zones very clearly. Alright guys, so this is the 1 hour time frame for GBP USD right here on the 1 hour time frame. It's not very different from what we expect on the 4 hours time frame. We expect price to move downward to respect this zone right here, thereby turning it into a very valid support zone before it continues its movement to the upside, guys, to respect this resistance zone or possibly break out of that resistance zone, since it is trending upward, but on the larger time frame. But on the flip side, you need to pay attention. If price decides to break below this resistance zone, then we can expect price to continue downward on the 1 hour time frame to respect this support zone right here. That will be giving us a double bottom, which is a confirmation of price continuing to the upside. If price decides to also break below this support zone, we can also expect price to give us a confirmation before continuing downward to the next support zone just below. So generally on GBP USD, we still expect some bullish movement. By the opening week, we expect some bullish movement, but first we expect price to retest some strategic zones. This is one of the zones we expect price to retest. This is the key resistance zone. We expect price to retest before continuing upward. But in a case where price decides to break below this zone, expect price to respect this support zone, thereby giving us a confirmation before continuing to the upside to respect this resistance zone or possibly break out of it to continue more to the upside. So guys, that will be all for GBP USD. So quickly we'll move over to XAUSD so we can also analyze and pick out some zones that we need to be looking out for, guys. Alright guys, so welcome back. Just like we said, this is XAUSD on a daily time frame on my screen. So we are just going to dive in real quick without wasting much time. So as you can see guys, XAUSD on the daily time frame is also on an uptrend on the daily time frame, and as you can see, price for the past week, price broke out of this resistance zone, also turned it into a support, and right here price broke out of the resistance zone right here. As you can see, price was ranging in between these two zones, and price has broken out of this resistance zone right here. So we'll be expecting price to at any point move downward to retest this zone, thereby turning it into a very valid support zone before continuing more to the upside. But on the flip side, if price decides to break below this zone right here, then we'll expect price to give us a confirmation of any sort before continuing downward to respect this support zone or possibly break out of the support zone to continue downward. So quickly guys, without much wasting of the time, we're going to move over to the 4 hours time frame so we can pick out some zones we need to be looking out for. Alright guys, so this is the 4 hours time frame as you can see on XAUSD. If you followed us for our last week forecast, you will remember that price was ranging in between these two zones, so we were looking out for a breakout, of which price just did right here. We're breaking out of this resistance zone right here. So at any point in time, just like the daily time frame, expecting price to move downward to validate this zone right here, just like price did on GBP USD. So expect price to continue downward to validate this resistance zone right here at any point in time before continuing more to the upside. So I'll quickly mark this out so we don't get really confused. This is also another zone we need to be paying close attention to. That's a support zone. This is also a support zone that we need to be paying close attention to, guys. So on the flip side, if price decides to move downward at any point in time to break below this zone right here, this previous resistance zone, then we expect price to continue downward after giving us a confirmation to respect this support zone, thereby reversing to the upside, or possibly break out of that support zone to the next support zone just below, guys. So quickly, without wasting much time, we'll still move over to the 1 hour time frame for XAUSD, so we can also pick out more clearer zones that we need to be paying close attention to, guys. Alright guys, as you can see right here on the 1 hour time frame for XAUSD, the zones we marked out are pretty very clear right here. So we are going to be focusing more on the breakout of which price did right here. So as you can see, price is still currently on the move to the upside. So we are going to mark out this zone right here. This, we can call this a support zone for price. We can call this a support zone for price. So for next week, guys, for next week, we expect price to come down at any point to respect this resistance zone. Now, how do we know price is going to come down to respect this resistance zone? As you can see, this is a support. So at any point in time that price, moves downward, we expect price to either respect this zone right here before continuing to the upside. But on the flip side, if price comes down to break below this zone right here, then we're expecting a confirmation, before continuing to the downside to respect this resistance zone, just like we expect. We could also get a confirmation in form of a head and shoulder. As you can see, this is one move here. So price could give us a move like this. I'll just take this off. Price could move downward, give us a move like this, which is a head and shoulder, before continuing downward to respect this zone right here. So for next week, generally on XAUSD, we expect a little downward movement for XAUUSD. That is, if price decides to break below this zone right here, then we expect price to continue to the downside, to respect this resistance zone, just like we expect before continuing to the upside. So guys, that will be all for this week's forecast with Chinex FX. Please do well to like and subscribe, and also very importantly, turn on the notification to our YouTube channel so as to get notified on whenever we post our weekly forecast. And also do well to check out our Telegram channel. The link will be displayed on the description of the video below. We offer a lot of premium services of which you might pick interest in and want to take part in, and we also carry out regular giveaways in our different communities on Twitter, on Telegram, and also on our Instagram page. See you guys next week, same time, same channel. GM guys.